Hi, this is Aaron Azrod, and welcome to the 56th episode of the Truth Island podcast. We've all had that moment in our lives when we were at the checkout counter and we were asked to make a donation to a charitable cause, or we passed by a homeless person and we were prompted to give something. And although we had a few loose dollar bills and coins in our pocket, we may have chosen, for one reason or the other, not to. However, a question arises. Is it ever right to judge someone based on whether they choose or choose not to give? Furthermore, should we also consider how much someone chooses to give? Does circumstance matter, or should one be expected to give the coat off their back to a fellow stranger who is in need? Is it ever appropriate that we try and sell some of our old stuff or throw it away? Or should we always run to donate things to the nearest Salvation Army? Joining me to help discuss some of these complex issues, I am joined with Jeff. Jeff, have you ever been charity shamed in your life?
Definitely. One funny story that comes to mind. I remember when I was in college, I was dating a girl, and then I think I was working part time at like a Rite Aid or something like that, and I was just making whatever money I was making. So uh, we I take her to some restaurant, whatever. She orders, I order, I pay for the meal. Then the bill comes, and there's a little section for tip. So I tip probably like maybe $5. Let's say that the meal was about like 40, $50. I tip like $5. So she says to me, "Oh, that's all you're gonna tip?" In my head, I'm like, "Yo, I just paid for the whole meal. Like you didn't do anything. Like why do you have say so in this?" And plus, we're both college students, not even 21 yet, because we couldn't even get drinks. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But that was definitely a time I remember being ashamed for tipping.
Did she like say, "Oh, it's customary to tip 15%"? Like how did she like fight back? Did she even offer to pay like to maybe add to the like now, if I'm not mistaken, you picked up the whole bill yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, did she offer to like cover, like if you put down $5, did she offer to like cover the rest and make it 15%, or she just kept on criticizing you for not putting more down?
I don't remember if she offered or not, but what I do remember is her saying to me that, "Oh, do you know that waitresses, etc., they make less than minimum wage and blah blah blah." And I said, "This is what they agreed to." Like this, they weren't forced to be waitresses. That was my rebuttal to it. But
Let me ask you, like, I know this is probably years ago for you. Was it that you just didn't have the money, or did you feel that something in her service was inadequate?
I was a college student working part time.
Okay, it was just
I was managing my money. That's all it was. I was managing my money.
Now, I think when you charity shame somebody, right? Like, I think if she felt that that was not enough tip, I think the right thing to have done is to kind of cover the balance, right? Like, because I feel like if you're walking with somebody and they're criticizing you for not giving enough, right? Well, then isn't it kind of incumbent on them to sort of make up the difference?
I would think so. In that situation specifically, I remember her like we both came from humble beginnings, so it was kind of weird for me that she said what she said. So it's like we didn't grow up rich or with like a silver spoon in our mouth. So it's like
Mm. Now, I got to ask you this question. When you went on this
sure.
date, did it
Hmm.
ever occur to you to perhaps go to a cheaper place that doesn't have a waiter or waitress, so you didn't even have to worry about tipping at all?
So here's the thing.
Okay.
So this was a first date. So one, it's a first date. Two, I'm on a budget. Three, I liked her. I'm trying to make a good impression. So, a place that doesn't have a waitress isn't gonna make the best first impression. So I went to I think it was maybe like BBQ or something. It was something like that. It was like, lower end restaurant, but nice enough for a date. I did
Now,
not consider McDonald's a Burger King. No,
right.
no.
No, definitely. If you took a girl to one of those places, they'd be like running out the door. Like, I am 100% with you.
Right.
Could it, since this did create like an awkwardness, did you learn after that, man, I gotta really, like, before I ask a girl out, I really gotta save up enough money to cover the bill and like put down an impressive tip?
Nope. What it taught me was when I put the tip amount, flip the receipt and leave.
and just not think about it.
Yeah, because I still had like 3 years of college left, so I knew that was gonna be my last date.
Let me ask you this question. You're considerably older now, right? And I assume
Hmm.
you're not a struggling college student. As an adult with a career, do you now subscribe to the 15% rule or the 20% rule, or do you feel that like, hey, it's just circumstance?
I subscribe to the 15% rule slash service. So 15% can go from 15 to 20 or from 15 to 10.
Mm, mm.
So I consider other factors too.
Gotcha. No, and I think that's a fair thing to do because if you have a waiter or waitress that's really not living up to the standard, right? You don't want
Hmm.
to, you don't want to reward them, and and it all depends. Sometimes the place is like really, really busy, and you empathize with the person that's serving you. But then other times, it's like no, they were just really, really not on point. And I'm wondering, like in that moment, and then we're going back some years when you were your younger self, how did it feel to be like, I guess, charity shamed in that instance? Did you feel like you had done something wrong, or did you feel that in that moment you gave what you felt comfortable?
I did what was best for my circumstances. It was weird to me that I got charity shamed by her. Weirdly enough, I got over it and we dated for a few months, and that was that. But I've had other charity shaming situations. I think most people in New York had this situation before, where a homeless person possibly asks you for money or whatever, and let's say you have a snack or something, or a banana or a piece of fruit, and you give them that instead, and
Hmm.
they'll look at it and say, "I don't want this," and just throw it on the floor. So you're being charity shamed by the consumer themselves in front of you.
Now this is interesting, and I've seen this happen before, and I've seen a guy actually hold a sign saying I will accept food, and then people actually give that person food and then they don't accept it. And that, I mean, even if the guy really doesn't want that banana or that bag of chips, they should at least politely take it and then get rid of it later on. But it's you're right. There is like I've
It's a
lived in
marketing strategy for them.
Right. I've lived in New York my whole life as well, and I've seen a lot of that. And it kind of comes down to this idea of whatever the person is willing to give. Now, there is also, though, I have to be fair here, when it comes to giving somebody food, if it's something that's like an unopened bag of chips or something like that. I totally feel that. However, sometimes people can be a little gross and they're just like too lazy to throw something out. And you could see that they've eaten like 90% of it, or they've spit in it and all this other stuff. And
Mm.
then I kind of see a little wiggle room where the guy might be like, listen, man, you spit on this or you ate all over this and there's only 10%. Then I can kind of see the guy refusing it. But if it's like an unopened bag of chips or something, I think that he should definitely take, or she should definitely take.
I agree. I agree with that. As far as the if the food is untouched, or whatever, if you're really homeless and hungry, who are you to choose? But as far as the signs go, you said you seen someone with a sign that says they'll take food, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
A lot of times they do that for marketing purposes, because if the sign said I don't want food, I want cash, then we know where that money's going to. I think a lot of times when people want to give out money, what they think of first, they look at them, and I think we all do this. We kind of size up the homeless person, like, does this person like they spend on drugs? Do they really want food? Blah blah blah, whatever, right? And then we make a decision whether we give it to them or not. Now, if they put on a sign, I'll accept food too, that means okay, I don't have food on me, but according to the sign, this person's probably going to buy food. So
Mm. I like what you said about it's like a marketing thing. We also, and we do this, either consciously or subconsciously, we also look at the homeless person's age. We look at their disability status and so forth, their veteran status, like all of these things, at whether we want to admit it or not, they all
their
come into
dog.
yeah, we all it all comes into play. And I would argue that we're probably more forgiving and generous. Like I've seen, in New York City, I've seen guys with no legs, I've seen guys that are blind, and your heart definitely goes out because there is that argument to be made, like, okay, there's obviously an impediment that this person is facing that I don't have, right? Like it's very when we're sizing people up, we always say, well, geez, I could do this. Why can't you? It's really harder to say that to the guy with no legs. It's really harder to say that to the blind person. But then if we see a young, healthy, muscular, strapping young guy who's homeless, then it becomes a lot harder to be like, all right, dude, what's your deal?
I agree, but I think it's the adverse effect if it's a younger pretty woman. I think she's probably getting more money.
Yeah, well, there might be see the guys giving her money might have. I wouldn't even call it charities. I think those guys are trying to solicit something else from that woman. So I don't, I wouldn't necessarily say that
Possibly.
like, I wouldn't say, see, everything comes with a cost, my friend. Like, if she's pretty and she's using her looks to get charity, well, she's also going to get some really unwanted advances from that as well.
Hmm.
But you are right on that. I think that being attractive probably helps to some degree. There might also be an example of like, we also judge people on how they speak and if they have a convincing story. Like we
Hmm.
listen to people's story, and sometimes in New York City you hear a guy's story, and then I look at that guy and I'm like, you were on the, you said that you lost your job a week ago. I saw you on the E train, but that same exact story like 3 months ago, and now you're still telling the same story.
Right.
So like we do make these judgments, and we do go in there. Now, does it ever matter to you, Jeff, like how much money is in your pocket? Like if you have loose change, does that make a difference? Or is it really just like on the case by case basis?
It's a little bit of both. I feel like if I know I have, a few loose dollars, whatever, I'm more liable to give it. If
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's in my wallet, for example, there was a time when someone had a really convincing story, and I said, you know what, let me give this person a few bucks. I went in my wallet. They seen me go in my wallet, so they kind of, started approaching me. This was on the train, and I had nothing but 20s, and I'm like, ah, shit. If I just put my wallet back away now, I'm gonna look like an asshole.
Yeah.
So like, and like the whole train was looking at me. I'm like, ah, damn, like I gotta give him a 20, and I gave him a 20, and like I was mad at myself.
No, this is true, because this is something that actually factors into how charitable we are. And actually going back to your topic with the and I probably made this mistake when I was younger as well with tipping and stuff. It all depends on your denominations. Like if the delivery guy comes and you only got 20s and 50s and hundreds, you're like, oh my God, like what am I gonna do? I mean, thankfully we can now give tips
Hmm.
with credit cards and apps and all this other fancy stuff. I mean, I usually just pick up the food from the store. Like I just do that and avoid whatever. Um, but yes, like the denominations that are in your wallet can actually affect how charitable you are, or whether to
Hmm.
give and whether not to give. I think that plays in. Now, something else that I mentioned was mood. Do you think that your mood has any influence on whether you choose to give or not give?
Totally, totally. Yeah, I feel if you're in a better mood, you are liable to be better to others. Period, and that comes in a form of charity as well. I think if you're like in a terrible mood, you don't even want to hear that story. You don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with that person at all, let alone go into your wallet and give them any cash. So, I think that's a big part also.
Now, I think that sometimes if somebody has been exceptionally mean to you, you tend to be less charitable, right? Like if your boss yelled at you, or something bad happened to you, you kind of feel like, well, no one's helping me in this world. My boss made me stay here late and do all this extra work. Why should I help this homeless guy who doesn't even have a job, right? And like, I think we somehow have a way, especially as New Yorkers, right? We have this way of transmitting what happened to us in our day onto the subway, right? And like, if we had a bad day of work, well, then everyone we see on that subway is just like pure evil. Whereas if something good happens to us and someone did something really nice or did you a favor, then you also, by extension, feel more charitable.
Right. I feel the type of day you had, it helps you justify what you want to do later.
Mm.
So, for example, you said if I had a bad day, my justification for not giving someone money is oh, this homeless person probably has been begging for a month in his line. That's probably a bad story. So I won't give anything. Now, if I had a good day, I'll probably say something like, what would Jesus do? Or whatever, whatever would help you give money, So
Mm.
the mood definitely plays a big factor.
That's interesting. We all, how about this one, Jeff? Have you ever wanted something in your life and you thought that maybe, oh man, if I just help this homeless person out, then like God will grant that wish or something? Did you ever have
Yep.
one of those moments?
I've had it in the past. I've definitely had it in the past. I'm like, you know what? I went on a job interview the other day. I haven't heard back yet. Let me give this homeless person $3. Let's see if God pays a little more attention to me now.
Right, right. And the thing that's funny about that one is like you're kind of like making some sort of like twisted deal with the universe in a way, right? Like now it's positive that some random dude gets $3, right? Like he's happy. He doesn't care why it is that he got that $3. He's just happy that you gave it to him. But in a way, it's like when you think about it, it's almost like you see it as a transaction you're making with the universe. Like it's not that I necessarily like this guy or I want to help him. I'm just hoping that some eyes above me see me committing this nice action so that I can receive a reward.
Right. I used to think that way. I don't think like that anymore. Well, we had this conversation before about religion and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're a religious person, you might think that way. You might think, if I do this good act, maybe, I'll get some fortune my way,
Mm, mm, mm.
But I feel like if you think deeper than that, God knows you're doing it to bargain. So it probably won't work because your heart isn't really in it. So I disregard all of that at this point in my life.
That's interesting. It's like, and I kind of think of this idea as like you really can't fool God, right? Like if you're just giving that $3 so that you can get like a job or something like that, it's not and someone else might argue, right? Like a scientist or someone might come along and be like, well, it really doesn't matter what your intentions are as long as something compels you to give that $3 and that guy is better off with that $3, that's all that matters.
I agree with that. I don't do things to I don't give money to get something back, if something like I trust my gut, I trust my instincts. My instincts tell me, you know what, I feel like this person needs this. I'll give it to them. That same
Mm.
person may have went and bought some crack, who knows? But at that point in time, I felt like they needed it, so I went with my gut and just hope for the best for them.
This is a very interesting thing. So you say that when you like choose to be charitable, and we talked about before your mood and all these other things, but you also have a gut reaction to somebody needing something. And would you say that's like how authentic they're being? Like what would trigger your gut to be like that lady needs like $5 right now?
Sometimes it's not even what they say. I might just look at them. Maybe their eyes may tell me a story before their mouth do, or maybe like I may see them and they remind me of someone in the past, that might have needed help, and whatever it is. But something just tells me, okay, this person, do what you can for them. That person, okay, I don't know. This person looks a little funny. I don't know about this guy, so
Hmm.
I'll just keep walking.
So maybe when you're looking at these people, right? If you see in that person's face, and it could be really hard to say what it is, if you see something in someone's face that was like, wait a minute, that looks like someone that screwed me over 3 years ago, you're not likely to give. But if you look at that person's face and you say, oh my God, that reminds me of this poor woman who lost her house in a fire or something like that, then you are more likely to give. It's interesting because that person's face may or may not be true, right? It's kind of your subconscious projecting past experience onto some new person's face.
It is, but as also I feel like as people, as animals, we have to use our past experiences to protect our futures. I may be wrong. If you see a creepy guy in the alley, chances are you shouldn't go down that alley. So I try to use my instincts the best as I can. I'm sure I'm wrong sometimes, but I think I'm doing all right for myself still.
Oh yeah, yeah. And like, again, like for example, like if that person is like really scratching themselves, or you notice like some other things that just don't look, there's like a twitching of the eyes or something like that, then those might very well be telltale signs that your $5 is not going to be spent in the right place. But it's interesting because when we look at faces, you're right. Like I'm wondering, and your instincts might also be true. Like in fairness, like maybe when you look at someone's face and they look in pain, maybe that is the universal expression of pain, or maybe that is the universal expression of innocence. I don't know if such a thing
Mhm.
exists.
Possibly. But you know what? Now that I think a little deeper into it, now that you're talking about it, I feel like maybe there's a greater good to give to someone, even if they are more than likely going to buy drugs. Because if you know anything about people on drugs, at some point okay, heroin for example, at some point they're going to get physically sick
Mm,
until they get another high, right? So
yeah.
what will they do right before they get to that point? They may harm someone and rob them, right? In that case, had I given that person $5 to go towards their, drug habit, maybe the universe was a little better off with that decision. I don't know. What do you think?
That's a tricky one because I think that might just be pushing the buck until the day comes when that person doesn't have somebody that gives them five. You know what I mean? Like, is it because if you decide to give them $5, okay, on that day you prevented someone from getting robbed or something bad from happening, but
Hmm.
that same exact problem might happen like a few days later, and then there's nobody to give that person $5, and then someone else gets robbed and so forth. So it's like you may have like helped somebody in that moment, but who's to say that like that problem won't happen like a week later?
Right. So what I'm saying is, you choose who you want to be in that scenario. Do I want to be the guy to prevent someone getting robbed, or be the guy who gives money to somewhat the greater good, at least for the next couple days, maybe? Who knows?
I mean, we could also even
It's
go, we,
tricky.
we could go even far and be like, maybe that $5 you give is actually the dose that that person overdoses on and dies.
Also true. Yep.
Like
Yep.
it can go into so many spirals of like who's to say where that money will come from. But returning back to what we're saying though, I think that as humans we can kind of sniff out, and I think this is especially us New Yorkers, right? We have this way of looking at faces and looking at situations and just being like, whoa, this guy really needs it. One thing that I always look for now that I'm actually thinking about this a little bit deeper, is that sometimes the people who are like very overt in trying to get money from you, like they're really approaching you, they're putting that cup right in your face, you kind of say, all right, you're being highly aggressive with like the way you're trying to solicit money from people. You're very in people's face right now. Whereas sometimes, like when you see that guy with no legs or something like that, they're not even really aggressively asking for money. It's sometimes like the people who need it the most are actually the most relaxed in the way that they may just have like a tip jar, or they may just have like something out, and you instinctively know as a human being that this person is on really 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 tough times, and we ought to give them $1 or so.
I think desperation is part of that.
Mm,
Also, that person's physical state. So a guy with no legs doesn't have to do much to get a few dollars, because you see they have no legs. You're naturally gonna feel remorseful and give a couple bucks. A guy who's a guy who maybe he lost his job 3 days ago, who still looks clean and decent.
mm.
It's kind of hard to give him money, because it's like, dude, you kind of look like me. Like, you may be lying to me. So maybe that's why that person's more aggressive, because they have to be, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, you make a good point. So like these outward disabilities kind of like they speak for themselves, so to speak. Like they
Totally, totally.
they like people can just see that and say, okay, whereas the guy who again is like fit or just lost a job 2 days ago or 3 days ago. But then you could also say, in this person's situation, like if this person does not have as many of the telltale signs, like let's just say they're wearing fairly decent sneakers, or decent jeans. Like sometimes I see people, homeless people, they're wearing more expensive sneakers than I do.
That
I
that's
wear this,
that's very
I wear the same sneakers for like 3 years, and I see some people and they're like wearing like nicer sneakers than me. And
So
it
that's
doesn't.
very common in New York. I had
Yeah.
every New Yorker has this story where someone came begging them for money in Jordans. Every New York experienced this before.
Yeah,
Everyone.
yeah. And I think, I guess what happens in that situation, Jeff, is that I say to myself, I don't think you're quite at the begging level yet. This is like the mental calculation I make. I'm like, because your clothes and your overall getup is pretty nice, it looks like you should be maybe printing out some resumes at the public library. Obviously, it's COVID, so things are really unique right now. But in times previous, I was like, maybe you should be filling out some job applications. Maybe you should be giving out more resumes, because if you approached an employer or you went to like when I was a kid, I used to work at a Baskin Robbins in Penn Station, and people would approach me all the time. I wasn't the manager or anything; I was just a kid working there. But people would approach me all the time and ask me for a job, and I'm like, okay, I would take their resume or their application or whatever it is that they wanted to give me, and it was like, as long as you're like well put together enough, it seems like the onus should be to first like start looking for a job or start looking for like public assistance or public resources before you necessarily like hit the subway.
To play devil's advocate to that point.
Yeah,
Okay, now that guy who's still decently clothed because he's newly homeless,
sure.
he's giving out resumes, but now it's 4 p.m. and he's hungry. Now what?
Yeah, that's a good point
You
too,
know?
right?
Because you've worked many jobs before, I'm sure. So it's like, yeah. So yeah, so you've worked many jobs before, and you know that you don't get your first paycheck 2 maybe 3 weeks out.
Sure.
So that time period, it's how do you fill your stomach?
That's true. That's true.
So
I guess
it's a dicey situation.
I guess it come then in that case with that person, then they should just kind of really be asking for food donations in that sense, right? Like if you
Hmm.
know that you've got a job and you know that your next paycheck is coming in 2 weeks, then it should not necessarily be as overt with like, give me as much money as you possibly can. It should be like, hey, I'm really, really, really hungry. My next paycheck is coming in 2 weeks. And then I think that is believable. And again, I think it comes back to what we just said, like maybe 5-10 minutes ago, is that it's all in this level of authenticity that we kind of sniff out of people. And it's really hard to explain what exactly it is that makes someone authentic. And I think that the Jordans, right off the bat, if you see somebody in Jordans, that immediately removes your authenticity, because it's like, why have you not gotten rid of these shoes and gotten cheaper ones or done something? I don't know.
Right, right. You have to, just like everything in life, you got to fit the look.
Yes, yes,
You can't
yes.
look like a rich homeless guy. It won't serve you right.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, on to the next topic. Should richer people be expected to give more? And there's so many layers to this, because there is like, should they be required to pay higher taxes? Should they be required to make higher charitable donations? But it could also be, should the richer guy at the dinner table be pay more when the check comes? So many different angles that we can kind of approach this. What do you think?
That's interesting. Okay, here's what I think. I feel like in our heads, we assume most people are decent human beings
Okay.
for the most part. And I feel like as decent human beings, we think that a decent person would give out a little more than a poorer person,
Now, you're talking about a dinner table, right? And a check. In
give
that
out a little bit more than a
now,
poorer person.
okay. Let's say that person sitting at the table, the rich dude, right? The rich dude is sitting at that table. Rich dude only has a salad and a glass of water. Is he still required to give more money than the poor people at the table who got like, 3 beers and like really went crazy with chicken wings and all this other stuff? Like how do we figure that one out?
So my explanation just now was more so towards charitable donations,
Oh,
not
okay, okay, okay.
yeah, not like at a birthday dinner type of situation.
No,
I feel like
we'll address that first. Okay, so when it comes to, let's say, giving to a charity in a church, for example, like the collection
mhm,
plate comes around, the richer person, and if there's someone in that church we all know is, oh well, this guy is a well-to-do lawyer, we know that he lives on blah 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 street or whatever, there should be more of an onus for that well-to-do lawyer to put, some 20s in that collection plate, as opposed to the single mom who's, working in a fast food joint.
Well, if we're gonna take it to religion, there's clear cut rules as to what you give. You're supposed to give 10%. So that rich lawyer's 10% and that cashier's 10% should be
Mm,
different.
right.
So I think there's a more of a clear cut rule with that situation. I think anything else where everyone can give whatever they want. I think if we think if you're a decent person, you'll give you'll pay like you weigh, like they say.
Mm,
So if
I
you
like
have
that.
fat pockets, you'll give a fatter tip.
All right.
You know.
Let's say we got the checkout counter, right? We got the checkout
Mhm.
counter, and that little bubble pops up before you swipe your debit card or whatever. Would you like to give, blah, 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 to this charity or something? We got rich lawyer dude, right? He says, I'm giving $2. That's all I feel like doing right now. Single mom right after her also gives $2. Would you say in that case that rich lawyer dude who only selected $2 was wrong, because the single mom behind him also gave $2 to that same little checkout thing, at the checkout counter?
Well, I think giving away money for free, you can never be wrong.
Okay.
That I will say. And I also think it depends on your walk of life. Like let's say you're at Petco, right? And
Hmm.
because this happens to me, and it says, do you want to give $2 to go towards an animal shelter or whatever? That rich guy, if he ever had a dog or a sick dog, he's gonna give more.
Hmm.
Maybe that single mom had a dog or whatever the case is. But whatever it is, whatever the charity is, it depends on who it triggers.
Ah,
You
I
know?
like that. No, I like what you're saying right now, because we sometimes charity shame people, but then we don't take into account, well, wait a minute, that person's not really passionate about that charity, right? And it's
Right,
like,
right,
and but now this is a very interesting one, because okay, let's take something like breast cancer, for example, right?
right,
If you have someone in your life who's had breast cancer, you're more likely to probably give to a breast cancer charity. And you're probably thinking in the back of your head, oh my God, my so and so died of this, or so and so has this right now.
right,
And
right.
you want to give as much money to that because you have a personal connection. Whereas if you
Hmm.
don't have a personal connection to breast cancer, you may give less money or no money at all. Now, some people, Jeff, might push back and say, if you're truly a good person, you'll still give a lot of money to something, even if it doesn't directly affect you.
I mean, it's easy to say that when you don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money, but I understand rich people problems. Just because I have a lot of money, I still have bills, and my bills are just bigger because I have a lot of money.
Hmm.
I still have, money to manage. But yeah, I feel like our money always goes towards our passions. But what triggers you? Okay, I didn't give money to breast cancer this week, but guess what? I'm giving money to colon cancer next week because of something that happened in my past, in my family history. So it depends. I think you
Hmm.
need to kind of get to know somebody first before passing those judgments. And to stay on topic, I think that's the problem with charity shaming. We just look at that little window of that window of that moment, and we just judge them based on that alone,
Hmm.
and we don't even know that person. You
That's
know?
true. That's true. Let's say we had some really concrete logistics on this. Let's say we got top level something, CEO or someone makes
Hmm.
$3.2 million a year,
Hmm.
and they get an envelope from an organization. Oh, could you please give some money to breast cancer? CEO guy says, don't know anyone that has breast cancer. Sorry, this isn't my passion. I gave $100 to save the whales. That I really care about, but not breast cancer. Should we judge that CEO who made $3.2 million and just won't give that $100 in an envelope because it doesn't speak to them, that particular charitable cause?
I think we will always judge that guy.
Yes, yes, we
We
will.
will always judge him. Now, can he somehow justify it to us later on? Maybe, maybe not. But we will always judge him because it's 3.2 million.
Would you judge him, Jeff?
Naturally, yeah. Subconsciously, I'm judging him. Yeah. Yeah.
So there, to a certain degree, like whether you're like, I think when you're poor or you have less money, you can then hide behind, well, guys, I'm not really passionate about, right? That makes a lot more sense when you have less money because you have finite resources. If you have finite resources, you can only give charity in certain directions that you feel are worthy. But the richer you become, it's harder to kind of hide behind, well, I'm just not passionate about that, because if you gave that $100, you would still have plenty.
I think with passion comes the work. Maybe he doesn't want to take out his checkbook and address it to this person and blah and mail it out. So I think that's part of the reason too. If you're really passionate, writing that check out to that organization isn't a big deal. But if you don't care, it's like, I don't feel like doing that and blah. I don't feel like going to the website and blah blah blah. Like I was saying before, we find excuses mentally
Right,
to
right.
justify why we will or won't do something.
Let's say rich dude comes by and says, you know what, I'm just not passionate about charity at all. It just does. I'm not. None of these things, like not save the whales, breast cancer, none of it interests me. I just can't. It's too much work. Can't take out my checkbook. Is there any pushback that we give that person, or do we just say, God bless you, man, we still love you, you do you?
Um, that person is getting judged once again. But those people, life probably hasn't humbled them yet. You know,
Hmm.
will they get a pass? Probably not. But if they ever need a handout in the future, they probably won't get it. Everyone's heart isn't the same. You know,
I like what
that's
you
what.
said about humbling. I think people who have relied on the generosity of others are probably maybe a bit more giving because they know,
They've been
I
there
did.
before.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard this saying amongst homeless that the best people that help homeless are former homeless because they've walked through those shoes before, and they know the deal, and they're likely to help if they can. So I think that, I don't know. I mean, you're right, Jeff. We're still going to judge $3.2 million a year guy, but that is something that we could take into consideration. Like, well, this guy has never been humbled before. They clearly
Hmm.
don't know better. Who should the government come in and humble them, or should someone step in and humble them? This remains, neither here or there. But yes, I think that comes into the calculus of how people choose to help or not help.
You actually reminded me of a story. So like, I speak to people in all walks of life. Like I'm just inquisitive like that. So there was one time I was at a gas station in Flatbush,
Yeah.
deep in Flatbush, right? And then this homeless guy, he comes to me asking for a couple of dollars. I gave him a couple of dollars. He was like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm not getting much today." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Listen, you know, uh, go to Park Slope. That community has more money. Maybe the people of it can't really afford to give you much." He said, "You know what? Poorer people give me more money than richer people." I was like, "Wow." And I think that's the same justification you just gave. Whoever's been there before, they're more understanding and they're more charitable.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it's an empathy thing. But people think that empathy is just you having a good heart. But what they fail to realize is that it's not just having a good heart, it's really your experiences that make you feel for somebody else. It's not like I just woke up on the right side of the bed and have a good heart. It's because I actually know what it's like to sleep outside in 20-degree weather, that I can actually feel that man's pain. It's like,
Hmm.
I've worked in fast food, Jeff. That's what allows me to kind of see the pain of other fast food workers. If I had never worked in fast food, I would not look into their eyes and see their pain as well.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, let's go back to our, you're with the boys, you're at the table, and the check comes, and you know that you've got your really rich friend at that table who bragging, got the nice watch, everything is going well in his life. Should he be expected to just pay his fair share of the check, or because he's on really good times, is there an onus for him to like pay more of that check? What do you think, Jeff?
Me and my friends always split everything down the middle, no matter what.
No matter what.
Because I mean, I think part of it is the male ego. I'm not gonna ask anyone for a handout,
Hmm.
especially not one of my friends, unless I need it. But if we're at a restaurant eating, that means I'm I have enough to cover myself. So I'm not gonna say, hey, rich friend, why aren't you paying more? And then that's, to me, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, no,
I'd rather just split everything down the middle and that's it. If he, because understand too, as men, even if out the kindness of his own heart, he said, "Oh, don't worry, guys, I got this." We're going like, "No, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We got it." Blah blah blah. So it probably wouldn't happen anyway.
it's funny because I think one of the rules of male culture is that you're doing well even if you're not doing well, and that's just like kind of have the face
Yep.
and then the kind of that's what you have to
Yep.
show at all given times. Now, this has been, and maybe I'm not hanging out with like as strong of males, but there is sometimes this issue where, like I said earlier, the dude just really just got like a salad and some water. Is he really beholden to now pay the same as everyone else? Or could he just be like, listen, guy, like we ordered like 5 pitchers, we got, the buffalo wings, we got like 5 appetizers, mozzarella sticks, and this guy over here just had water and a salad. Is he still beholden to have to pay the same as everyone else?
I mean, he shouldn't, but I feel like the culture of most friendships, you had the opportunity to get what you wanted. You've been out with us before. We always split the bill down the middle. We hate the guy who itemizes the bill. We don't invite that guy back out. The guy who only had, the water with the lemon and the garden salad. Like, we don't like hanging out with that guy. So I feel like, I mean, unless someone gives him the out and say, "Hey, you only had this or that, just give us whatever," then cool. But usually, we just split down the middle and that's that.
Now, here's where circumstance kind of plays a role. Because imagine you have a friend at that table and you know that that friend just lost their job, and then you see them like itemizing the bill, like, listen, dude, I just had water, and they wanted to hang out with you guys and you wanted him to hang out with you, and he was just trying to be polite and just have like a salad because he knows he's unemployed and he knows that he can't afford to eat lavish food, but he still wants to be social and still wants some friends. I think I would be a little bit more understanding of the itemized guy if I knew that they were under particularly harsh circumstances.
Right.
Whereas if the rich dude was like, no, 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 guys, I only got the salad, and I only got the water,
Right.
then I would be really harsh on the rich dude because it's like, dude, you've got plenty of money. Like, here you are splitting like $3, you're arguing over $3. But I think if I had a friend that was on rocky times, I'd be a lot more forgiving.
That's definitely understandable. I think that's when I would be more charitable and just cover his cost.
Yeah.
Because to save himself from embarrassment, to say, "Hey, I only had the garden salad," like, no guy wants to feel like that. So to save him the embarrassment, I'll just cover his whatever it is and just smooth things over so he doesn't have to be put on the spot.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that we all charity shame or don't charity shame, but what ends up happening is that there's a lot of variables under the water that influence all of our decisions. Because if rich dude itemizes that bill, you and your friends are going to talk about him behind his back, like, yo, come on, that guy, you saw the car that he drove, and he's arguing over $3. So I think we all kind of do this, and it really depends on how well we think we know somebody.
Right. I think backstory is very important. It's
Yes.
very important because, like you said, if you know the guy just lost his job, like I said, I'd offer to pay his portion.
Hmm.
Now, rich dude, I'm not offering to pay his portion. Like, you're a rich dude. Like, come on. So the backstory makes a big difference.
Now it never happens, and it never happens that like really rich dude should pay more, right? Like that's never the expectation. It's always rich dude should just pay equal to everyone else, not a penny more, not a penny less. It's never it's never like some people, sometimes I hear this argument, well, that guy invited us out or something, and he's really rich. It's kind of incumbent upon him to take care of us. That's never the case, in your opinion.
Well, let me ask you a question. When you hear that, who's usually saying that?
Other people.
Yeah, but specifically, who's saying that?
I know what you're
Do
getting at, man. I know.
guy, because guys don't say that to other guys. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah,
never want to feel like we're being taken care of by another dude. Like,
yeah, yeah.
that goes back to the whole that ego. Like, you're not paying for me.
Right, 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 right.
So it's just I'm gonna hold my own. You know, you hold
Mm.
your own, and that I don't care how rich you are, but I'm not gonna be made to feel small.
I
You
think I
know,
think I but I think this is really good about male culture is that we have these like ironclad principles because it teaches us not to expect from others. And I think like that's a really important thing for all of us to have. And something that could be because we hear this word like toxic masculinity and all this other stuff, but I actually think that that's really good masculinity because it shows it shows that when you go before a rich person, you should not expect anything from
should
that
still be
rich.
who you are.
Yes,
Should
yes.
still be who you are.
And
Um,
ultimately you should just go to that table being like, I'm taking care of myself. Now here's the final thing. Suppose rich dude says, fellas, I got it. It's on me tonight. How much arguing or how much back and forth should you be expected to do to get a hold of that check? Or is there a point where you just give up and let rich dude pay for everybody?
there's the point you do give up, but you have to give enough fight that your ego stays intact. You have to give enough facts. You have to give enough fight that the room knows you were planning to pay.
Yes.
But when you give up and let them pay, you feel a little good. Your wallet feels good inside. It's like, okay, whatever. I just saved some money. And then you're like, damn, I probably should have ordered that extra shot and whatever. But anyway, it is what it is.
So, so like I guess like you should at least so you have to at least pull out your wallet, put your card on the table, and like really put up a bit of a stink just for a while, right? In order because if you go down too easy, you're still going to get charity shamed, right? Because if you okay, and you just you don't make any gesture at all, then people might be like, man, he didn't really want to pay you, that was a fake gesture. So I think
Right, right.
even in these instances you have to be highly authentic that you want to make that contribution.
So I have this conversation with my friends all the time. Gestures go a long way. Example, if you've been on like your eighth date with a woman and she's never faked like she was taking her wallet out to help pay for anything, and you say, you know what, don't worry, I got it. She's never made that gesture. You're
Yeah.
gonna look at her like, no, I don't know about her because I can honestly say for the most part, like by date three, usually they offer to pay for
mm,
something.
mm, mm,
Whether
mm.
it's I'll pay for this date, I'll pay half, or I'll pay the tip. I usually say, don't worry, I got it. But that offer goes a long way. It goes a
Yeah.
long way.
Or it could just be like ice cream or tea or whatever it is, like some dessert item, some other gesture, or in the going all the way back in time, all that girl had to really do was be like, hey, thanks for treating me out, I got the tip, or just something
Yeah.
like that is actually a good gesture of goodwill, in the sense that like
And
I
mutual investment because she's willing to pay too. That means,
yes,
she's
yes.
not just, using me, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny when we started this conversation. At least I had this idea that probably, oh, charity shaming is pretty bad. But I think when we're really reflective, we find ourselves guilty of doing this, and sometimes it's for really good reason.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is cultural. Like
Yes.
you were saying about toxic masculinity, I feel like there's not much that's really toxic masculinity. I think it's just someone who couldn't, capitalize off of men probably came up with that phrase. But I feel like a lot of this quote unquote toxic masculinity, it's just, it's standards.
But I think the idea, look, I think like the crux of the issue is that in life you need to be prepared to handle everything kind of on your own. And if some good things happen to you, that's okay as well. Like, be grateful for the good stuff, and the if someone does help you out or whatever,
Hmm.
okay, express gratitude, be grateful, and if you can repay them back one day, try and do so. But at the same time, I think that walking forward with the right foot forward is really a good kind of mindset when we think of charity and giving. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show today, my friend.
Definitely. My pleasure.